In this video, we're going to talk about the second rule for solving equations, and that says that factoring is best when one side of the equation equals zero. So let's look at an example. So in part A, I got x plus 4 times x plus 1 equals 0, and I want to solve this. So the idea for something like this is there's this thing called the zero product property. And what that says is if two things multiply to 0, so if A times B equals 0, well, either the first thing, A, equals 0, or the second thing, B, equals 0. All right. So how does this help us here? Well, in our equation, we have two things that are being multiplied together. They're the x plus 4 and the x plus 1 equaling 0. Well, for that to be true, either x plus 4, the first thing, is going to equal 0, or the second thing, x plus 1, will be equal to 0. And then isolating the x, we get x equals negative 4, or from the second equation here, negative 1. And that's our answer. X could be negative 4, or x could be negative 1. Okay. All right. So what about part B? So in part B, I got the same thing on the left-hand side. It's factored. But on the right-hand side, I got a different value. I got the number 10 rather than 0. Okay, so first, I want to talk about an incorrect way of doing this, a very common mistake that folks will make. And that's to do something very similar to what we did in A, is to try letting each of the factors, x plus 4, be equal to the number on the right, be equal to the 10, or the second factor, x plus 1, setting that equal to 10. Because if I do that, now if I subtract the 4 in the first equation, I get x equals 6. If I subtract the 1 in the second equation, I get x equals 9. Okay, so, well, do these work? Let's check these answers. Let's check these answers. So I'm going to check x equals 6. Let's take x equals 6. Let's plug it back into the equation. So that'll give us 6 plus 4, and then times 6 plus 1. And I want to know if that equals, so I'll put a question mark above this equal sign. Will it equal 10? So if I multiply this, well, 6 plus 4 is 10. 6 plus 1 is 7. 10 times 7 is 70. Does 70 equal 10? Well, no. Okay, so the two sides are not equal here, which means x equals 6 is not an answer. I'm plugging it in, it's not working. Okay, well, maybe the other answer works. Let's try x equals 9. All right, if I plug that in to the first parentheses, I'll get 9 plus 4. In the second parentheses, I will get 9 plus 1 equals question mark, because I don't know if it equals 10. And simplifying this, well, 9 plus 4 is 13. 13. 9 plus 1 is 10. 13 times 10, that's 130. So 130 and 130 does not equal 10. 130 does not equal 10. Okay, so neither one of these answers are working. So clearly this was incorrect. All right, so what is the correct way of doing this then? Okay, all right. So the correct way of doing this is I need to first expand and multiply out the left-hand side. So if I FOIL out this whole left-hand side, I'll get x squared plus 5x plus 4, if I FOIL it out, equals 10. Now let's move everything over to the left side so that one side equals 0. So I will subtract the 10. So I'm going to move the 10 over to this side, subtract it. I get x squared plus 5x. That'll give us minus 6 equals 0. And now I got a quadratic equals 0. Now I can try to factor this. So I know I'll have an x and an x. So I need two numbers that add to 5 and they multiply to negative 6. And that'll be plus 6 and minus 1. And now I have something factored in equals 0, like example A did. So now I can set each one of these things equal to 0. Okay, so this first parentheses, well, that's going to equal 0 when x is negative 6. And the second parentheses factor, well, that'll equal 0 when x is 1. And those are the answers. All right. So the key thing there is for the zero product property to work, you know, they do have to, I'd have to have zero on the other side. If two things multiply to zero, then one of those two factors equals zero. But if the other side is a different number, like 10, well, this method didn't work because what we were assuming was, well, if two numbers multiply to 10, does that either mean, does that mean that one of those two things has to be 10? Like either this has to be 10 or this has to be 10. But they don't necessarily. Like one of the two numbers does not have to be 10 for them to multiply to 10. Like maybe one of the numbers is 2 and one of them is 5 because those also multiply to 10. All right. So the moral again there is that factoring is best when one side equals 0.